cool. Okay, let's begin. So this sikha, even though, by the way, some of the translations of these sikhas are not so exact. Some of the prints I have is from a good translation. Some of them is from a sefer called Rayon HaShavua Miyusad or Melukit Sefer Lakoti Sikhas. And it's not such a good translation always. Here also, just even the title says over here Chavdal Tevis. In Lakoti Sikhas, it says Vo'era / Chavdal Tevis. In other words, it's both on the Parsha and on Chavdal Tevis. So just stam. Here it is. See, in mine, where it's the original sikha, it says Vo'era Chavdal Tevis.
Yeah, what is the symbol of the AC here?
So the symbol, that's an interesting thing. I don't know. Maybe it's because of that, because it's also to tell you that's about Chavdal Tevis. It's a Parsha Vo'era also. I don't know. It's a good question. Okay, so he says, Kivin shal Shmoy shal Admor Azokin. Yesh mashmos shal oir. No, I'm looking at the wrong page.
I think I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, now you see why there's an asterisk. The asterisk is, he says to look up Lekut Levi Yitzchak, where over there's a letter of the Rebbe's father that speaks al pi Kabbalah, and according to Remez, what's the idea that Alter Rebbe Dafke passed away in Chavdal Tevis? What's the significance of the month of Tevis? What's the significance of Chavdalad? I don't remember right now. I wanted to actually look it up because of something else, and I never got around to it. So he says, Yiduim divrei hashalom, shekol moyadei hashana v'atarichim ha'miyuchadim. So, have to do, let's skip for a second. Let's skip where it's over there, the lines. Nirmozim beparshis ha-Torah ha-nikrois v'al-nilmodis betkufa shecholem b'ma'adim el. If I remember correctly, the Shalosh says this concerning the connection between Parshas Miketz and Chanukah. And I think Shalosh brings Ramazim that usually we read Parshas Miketz during Chanukah, and he brings Ramazim where we see in Parshas Miketz the idea of Chanukah. And the Rebbe constantly speaks about this, so that when a certain special day comes out in a certain parsha, it's connected. But here the Rebbe says, it's not just any Yom Tov, but even something that, let's say, maybe in the world they wouldn't consider, a big deal. But it's now going to where we skipped. The yard site shel tzaddikim. Even that, which is like, perhaps in Pshuti Shal Mikra, somebody would say it has nothing to do with the Parsha. Even that, the Rebbe says, should have to do with the Parsha. And the Rebbe says, Tzaddikim shedoimim leboiram. There's a medrash that says that Tzaddikim are similar to their Creator. So therefore, something that occurs to a Tzaddik, his Yom Haledes, his yard site, this is something of significance. V'kadoimim is similar to that. So all of them are Nirmazim in the Parsha of the week. Kach muvon l'gab Chavdal Tevis Yom Hailul Shad Morazokin Shachal B'Roi Vashonim Ki B'Shana Zu, when the Rebbe said the Sikha was in the year Tafshin Mem Aleph, so it comes out B'Shavua Parshas Vo'era. So the Rebbe says Parshas Vo'era Yesh Remez L'Maisa V'Teirosei V'Avidosei Shal Admor Hazokin. This expression of Maisa, Teirosei and Avidosei, this is an expression that's used concerning the Alter Rebbe writes in the two Igeres HaKodesh, where he writes about the stalkus of a tzaddik, that he says that all the actions and all his avodah and all of his Torah that he did and he worked in, all Yemei Chayav, come together and are nis'ala and have a great revelation of the day of his stalkus. So therefore, and the Rebbe always says that everything that happened once repeats itself all over again. So all of these things of the Alter Rebbe, they come to a state of being complete and perfected in the day of the Istalkus. So therefore, all of these things are connected and hinted in Parshas Vo'era. And there's actually a few sikhs scattered throughout Lakota Sikhs and other Fabrengens, where the Rebbe talks about the connection between Parshas Vo'era and the Alter Rebbe and the Alter Rebbe's yard site. Here, in this Sikha, the Rebbe is not even going to go into the story of the Parsha. We're not even going to deal so much with the events of the Parsha. And we're not even going to deal so much with the events of the Alter Rebbe so much, but in both cases we're going to look at the name. We're going to look at the name of the Parsha and the name of the Alter Rebbe. And already in the name of the Parsha and the name of the Alter Rebbe, there is a common denominator, a tzad hashava b'neihem, obviously based on what the Parsha is coming to teach us, because the name of the Parsha and the name of everything, the Rebbe always emphasizes the teichen of the thing, and the same thing, the name of the Alter Rebbe gives out the teichen what the Alter Rebbe is about. Achas and the kudus hamishutafis shekasheres Hashem Parsha Vo'era sheka'amur misfor pamim mevat es teichen Parsha kula. Whenever you have the name of a Parsha, it indicates the meaning of the whole Parsha. Like we said, was it last week's year we mentioned this, that from the fact that Parshas Noach is called Noach and Parshas Toldos is called Parshas Toldos, that's a proof that the name of the Parsha must have a connection with the Parsha, because or else Toldos Noach should have been called Toldos. It says Eila Toldos Noach. If you're going by the first word of the Parsha, that's like a unique word, so in Parshas Noach should have been the first place that was called Noach. Toldos, I'm sorry. And when it got over there, the Toldos Yitzchak, where it speaks over there, Yaakov and Shema and Esav, so over there it should have looked for a different name. It should have called it Parsha Yitzchak. The fact that by Noach it calls it Noach, and by Toldos it calls it Toldos, that means, why is it dafka this name? It's not just the first actual original word that you can use, but because it has to do with the connection with the Parsha itself. So therefore, it has to be connected not just with the Alter Rebbe, but im Shmoi shal Admor HaZaken. Shmoi harishon shal Admor HaZaken, Shmoi ha'ikri Hashem b'lashon ha'kodesh. In other words, Shneur is the main name. Zalman is like the Yiddish name. It's something taken really from Yiddish. Some people say that the source of Zalman is from the word Shloimeh, like in Yiddish. Shloimeh would be like Solomon. So that comes Zalman, some people say. But the main name at Alter Rebbe, Lashon Kodesh, Hu Shneur. And Shneur means Shnei Oires. Keloimar Inyan Shal Oir. I think we mentioned this one time, that I don't remember, I don't think it was by the Alter Rebbe, but the first person that was called Shneur was named after two different people. One was called Meir, and one was called, I don't remember now the other name, and because of that, it was also a name having to do with the word Oir. If you can think for a second, what other name has to do with Oir? But anyway, so because of that, they wanted to name after both, so they called it Shnei Oir. So the Alter Rebbe, the teichen of the name of the Alter Rebbe, Shnei Oir, means two Oirs.
What do you mean two, the guy that...
There was a child that was born, and they wanted to name him after one person that was called Meir, and another person that also had a name that had to do with Oir. And how do you name both names? Instead of just naming him Meir, whatever, I don't know what else it was, so instead they called him Shnei Oir. That's where the name Shneur came from. So it says, Gam Lemila. So therefore, this means that the Alter Rebbe is an idea of light. And soon we're also going to explain that it's not just stam light, but it's two levels of light. And also, Gam Lemila Vo'era. What does Vo'era mean? Shepirushay Hisra'esi. Yesh mashmaz doim el mashmaz ha'oir. Ha'oir einay moisiv davar chadash ela meir. Vaidei kach ma'afshel ledvarim shoyakayamim lifnekein lehira'is va'era. I repeated this different occasions, that there was a story with the Frierdiker Rebbe, that he was once in a hotel in Vienna. And Vienna was a mix of different people over there. There was a lot of Chassidim lived in Vienna, but a lot of Yekis, a lot of German origin Jews, Ashkenazic Jews, people that weren't familiar with Chassidus. So they asked the Frierdiker Rebbe, what's the Chiddush of Chassidus? So he said, they were sitting like in an old-fashioned hotel lobby, very ornate, very decorative, but it was also very dark, like these hotel lobbies. So he asked whoever, the Frierdiker Rebbe asked the person, do you see what's over there on the top of the beam? Do you see the decoration over there? He says, no. So he took a lamp, it was like a table lamp over there next to the couch, whatever that was sitting on, and he turned it up, and he shined it over there. He said, now do you see it? He says, yeah, I see it, and it's this, it's that. So he says, that's the same thing with Chassidus. Chassidus didn't come to bring something new, it only came to shine a light. In other words, light doesn't create something new, it reveals something that's there. And it's also going to have a lot to do with what he's soon going to explain. When a person teaches something to someone else, it's also likened to a light. It's not like I give you something. If I hand something to someone, I'm giving them an actual thing. I took $1 out of my pocket and I put it into your hand. I took a piece of food and I put it into your hand. Seichel, I'm not taking a seichel and giving it to you. What I'm doing is I'm shining a light on something. And I'm showing the person, look, you see this? You see this thing over here? This is what it is. And that's why, it's also, Chassidus explains, I can't make you understand. Just like I can't make you see. I can shine a light on something, now you have to see.
It needs to come from you.
Huh?
It needs to come from you.
It needs to come from you. Not just the idea of light, but also Shnei Oir is hinted. The two lights is hinted in Vo'era. The Baal Shem Tov said, when the Alter Rebbe was 3 years old, the Baal Shem Tov had an Aliyas Neshama. This was in the year Tovkuf Zayin, 3 years, when the Alter Rebbe was 3 years old. And he said, after he had this Aliyas Neshama, he said that there is a Neshama now in this world that will illuminate the world with two lights, the lights of Nigla, the light of Chassidus. Hakavani loira Nigla Shabbatayra, loira Nister Shabbatayra. Hamila va'eira murkeves ma'oisius oir and aleph. Oir and aleph haroim zeis shnei oiris. Tchila sahena oisius va'eira. Va'eir, from va'eira, the letters vav aleph reisha va'eira hamarkivos hasamila oir b'mefurish. So that's oir hanigla. Oir hanigla is revealed part of Torah, because the letters are open. You see clearly the letters over there. It's out of order, but you see clearly the letters. What is the Ois Aleph? Ois Aleph is a Rosh Tevis of the word Oir, meaning that Oir is not revealed, but it's still there. Shehi Tchilas Hamila Oir, meaning Oir Shu Behelam Berosh Tevis. V'roim is La Oir Hanister Shabbatayra. In the footnote, before you turn the page, he says a very interesting thing that we can also see a similar idea in footnote 11, what takes place in this, the end of this pasuk. It says, Va'era bekel shindal yud, I appeared to the others with kel shindal yud, v'shmi havaya loina daiti lehem. So what level is revealed? There's one level that's revealed, and one level that's loinoi daiti. So you see, there's a level of revelation, a level that's nista. Next page. Kiven sheshmoy shad murazakin yesh mashmoy shaloir, muven shezel gam echad achidushim shal maisa v'teirasa v'avdas shad murazakin. And again, the Rebbe has many sichos, many fabrengens, many different places where he talks about what did Alter Rebbe do, what did Alter Rebbe accomplish, what's the avodah of Kol Yamav. So let's first go to his name. What part is hinted in Alter Rebbe's name? That's what he did. He wasn't the first Rebbe. He wasn't the first one to reveal Chassidus. But what he did was Chassidus Chabad he brought out. But the Friedrich Rebbe says, Hamiyased shel Chassidus Chabad. The Alter Rebbe was the founder of it. Chassidus Chabad went on many generations, 7 generations of Chassidus Chabad. But the Alter Rebbe established this whole movement. He started a whole approach of taking Chassidus in a way of Chachma bin Adas. What does that mean? She's Galsai, the Baal Shem Tov Magid Mezrich, Legilui bekoiches haseichel Chachma bin Adas, ba'oifen shekol echad yuchol lahavin oisam b'sichlai. That's the idea of Oir. Before the Alter Rebbe, people learned Kabbalah. Even when they learned Chassidus, it was like very short, often like mystical words. The Baal Shem Tov could say something like, a person shouldn't miss a day of doing a mitzvah because through that he's yoimin, ashleimin, vavram, zaken, baba yamim. Baba yam means that all his days are complete. What does mitzvahs have to do with days? He didn't explain. Why is it necessary that every day needs to be complete? All of these things, all of these type of explanations is found mainly in Chassidus Chabad. So the Alter Rebbe takes an inyan that's like said in a very cryptic way, in a very mysterious way, and he is meir an oir on it. The oir of Primis HaTorah, he shines that it should come down in Chochmah bin Adas. V'kach, gam legabe ha'oir shel nigla sheb'Torah. Chibur HaShulchan Aruch shaloi. So what was the unique thing about Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch? The Mizritcher Maggid told him he should write a Shulchan Aruch. But what did he do that was different than what was done before? Before the Alter Rebbe, there was the big Shulchan Aruch that the Bes Yosef wrote, the Mechaber, the Ramah wrote on it. What did the Alter Rebbe do that the world did not have until the Alter Rebbe wrote the Shulchan Aruch? So he says, Hava sha'achad achidushim ha'ikrim boi hoya, Havas halachas b'tameyam milsa b'taima davke. Kedei sha'aloy oisam lo yeda raketz ad linag l'maisa ela af yovin as halacha al burya. Just like in Chassidus, he didn't just say concepts of Chassidus that were just like mystical things. Azay is the Inyan, this is what it is. But he brought it down into Chabad, the same thing in Nigla. He could have wrote Halacha Sefer that just says, this is what you got to do, nothing else. No, he brings the reasons and he brings explanations. Why do we do it this way and why not that way and where does this apply and so on with the explanations. Why? Because then you have it come down into Seichel. And the Rebbe says that one of the miles of that is it also helps to remember it. If you just have just a whole bunch of facts lined up without understanding why, it's often very difficult to remember. But if you understand the reasoning behind it, that's a key to help remember. That's just another example. But the main thing what he's saying is that it should permeate the person. It should come down into the person's Chochmah bin Adas. Like we said before, Seichel shines a light on something. Kasher mevinim davar b'seichel unase mu'or v'gali la'adam. Ha'adam roya oz hadavar la'mitoi u'megale mahu be'emes. So therefore, when you take Chassidus, Primis HaTorah, and you bring it down to Chabad, you take Nigla Torah, you take the Halacha, and you explain the reason, so you're taking it from a state of just being a fact to something that's a state of oir. That's why Dafkid Alter Rebbe is called Shnei Oir, that he brings oir into both things. Others taught Nigla also, others taught Primis HaTorah also, but not in a way of oir, not in a way that it permeated the Chabad. Kasher ma'aminu emashu afilu b'amuna amitis b'lisham sveikis harikivin she'ein mevinim ein adover golui pasuach la'adam hu yedea shekachu adover ach ha'or shel ha'seichel meivil dekach sheyiru es adover l'chol protov kach she'efsher u'magiyim b'poyel liyichud nifla she'amaskil v'ha'seichel v'ha'muskol nasim dover echad. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya says that learning Torah has a special maila over mitzvahs. When a person does a mitzvah, so then the Oir Hashem, which is enclosed in the mitzvah, only surrounds the person. It's only makif. It's like a lavush, it's like a garment, it's like wearing clothing. When a person learns Torah, he's taking in the Oir Hashem, that's in the Chochmah of the Torah, inside of him. But not only is he taking it inside of him, but his mind and the Eibishter Seichel become joined in such a way that Ein Yichud Kamayu Ba'olam. When is that? When I understand. If I'm just learning something, but I'm just like repeating it like a parrot, and I say, Rava says like this, Abaya says like this, I have no idea what Rava means, I have no idea why Abaya says this, then it's not becoming that yichud kamayu, because I'm not really getting it. I'm not really taking it in. And the same thing in Chassidus and Pnimius HaTorah. If I'm learning a topic about a Malach Kalam, a Soiv Kalam, I remember we were a little bit some crazy counselors in California when we worked for Avram Levitansky, and on the bus to the different trips, taking totally fryer kids, we started cheering with them. What did we cheer with them? That all the kids said after us, Memale, Kol, Alvin, Soiviv, Kol, Alvin. You know, obviously they had no idea what they were talking about. We enjoyed it because we were crazy guys. But that's not called, with all the milas, with all the milas of doing that, but it's not considered that it's meir b'soichai, that it's something that comes down a previous. There's even popular songs from Jewish singers that say over there Mamal Kalam and Soiv Kalam. And there's even this Israeli singer. I was in the spol. He says, "Oyrei Saf Melubish Beguf." Why are you trying to, what's it over there? Kluv, you want to put me in a box. Oyrei Saf Melubish Beguf. But what does he know what Oyrei Saf means? And does he know what it means? Does he know what Oyrei Saf Melubish Beguf means? Anyway, when we learn Chassidus, we have that Oyr that's Melubish. Maybe, I don't know him. So the point is, it's not just about saying the words, which is what was a lot of times learning Kabbalah in previous generations, but understanding it that it should be meir in the primis. And then I become this yachid with it. Zeh achidush al Admor HaZaken begilu Torah Chassidus Chabad sha'oir shal anistir shebetoira ad lo tkufas shal Admor HaZaken nilmadu roiv ha'inyanim shal Torah Chassidus ba'oifen shal amunah. This is the way it is. It says it in Kabbalah. I'm sure Rabbi Shimon Yochai knew what he was talking about. I'm sure the Arizal knew what they were saying. I'm sure the Baal Shem Tov and Mezritch Magid knew what they were saying. I could rely on them. I have emunas chachamim, emunas tzaddikim. I believe in them. The tzaddik b'menasai yichya. So the famous thing is that by Chagas Chassidim, by other Chassidim, they used to change the nekudas on this pasuk. It's a pasuk. Chagas Chesed Bor Teferes. It's Polish Chassidim. Chassidim, not Chabad Chassidim. I call Chagas Chassidim. So they would do it. They would teach tzaddik b'menasai. Don't read it yichya, but yichaya. That the tzaddik, that the fact that he has a munah, he gives chayas to his chassidim. But the chassidim don't have to work with their own mind to try to understand and to figure it out and so on. It's enough that the tzaddik understands. Why was that necessary that a tzaddik should do it for him? Because he was missing the oir and chayis. It's very interesting. The Tul Shoynus over here that he says over here, the oir and chayis, that he says, there's a famous letter of the Rebbe Rashab that he wrote. One time he was away from Lubavitch in Yutas Kislev time. Usually that was one of the few times of the year that the Rebbe Rashab used to fabring. It was Yutas Kislev, it was Purim, and Simchas Torah. That's about it. Maybe one or two other times, but that's mainly. It wasn't like by the Rebbe that fabrengens were every Yom the Pagra and so on. And so one time the Rebbe Rashab had to be away from Lubavitch for Yutas Kislev, so he wanted to give the Chassidim something. So he wrote a very famous letter where the famous letter where the Rebbe Rashab called Yutas Kislev Rosh Hashanah L'Chassidus. That's where that term Rosh Hashanah L'Chassidus comes from. It's from that letter, and in that letter the Rebbe Rashab also says Oir v'chayis. It's the day that Oir v'chayis nafshenu nitten lanu. So he uses the same language over here in that letter that he says that it's Oir v'chayis, that Chassidus Chabad, which came. And the main idea of Chassidus Chabad came about with the release of Alter Rebbe from imprisonment, because before the imprisonment it was still in a way that was limited and so on. After the Geula, so then it became the Oir v'chayis nafshenu nitten lanu. Admor HaZaken aydei gilui Chassidus Chabad hischil laha'ir. And in footnote 17 he brings what the Rebbe Rashab says. The Rebbe Rashab says in Torah Shalom in Asicha, he says, the Rebbe al derech Avram hischil lahoyer. There's a medrash that says Avram Avinu, that till Avram ha'aya olam mishalach ba'afela, till Avram came hischel lahoyer. In a similar vein, the Rebbe Rashab says in Torah Shalom, the same thing, the Alter Rebbe hischel lahoyer. So the emphasis again is on the word meir, that it's something that I can take in, something that I understand, something that I appreciate. And Yodim Shal Torah Chassidus is Galu L'chol Echad, which was not there before the Alter Rebbe. Even with the Baal Shem Tov, even with the Mezritcher Magid, it wasn't in a way of a Gili. And now the Rebbe adds also the same thing concerning the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. Kach gam legabi ha'or shal nigel shebetoyram chibur ha'Shulchan Aruch. Matarasa shel Shulchan Aruch hiladas halacha l'maisa. Ulefichach, if it's about halacha l'maisa, why bring in reasons? Ein kan mokim l'chura l'taimim l'diyunim b'kashel halacha elarak l'maskana shel halacha l'maisa keitz al ha'adam lina gepoyel. And it says the Beis Yosef, he's going to mention in a moment, that the Beis Yosef said that when he wrote the Shulchan Aruch, was written also without much explanation, but he relied on his pirush that he wrote on the Torah. Before there was the Shulchan Aruch, there was the Dalet Turim. That was the one, Rabbeinu Yaakov ben Asher, the Baal HaTurim, the one that writes the pirush Baal HaTurim, is called Baal HaTurim because he created the 4 pillars of Orach Chaim, Yerideh, Even Ezer, Choshen Mishpat. So he invented the format of the Shulchan Aruch, but over there was still a lot of back and forth. In the Torah, he brought different days. The Rif says like this, the Rambam says like this, the Rashi Mordechai says like this, Tosfos says like that. Beis Yosef on the Torah would explain it even more and bring Mekodos and Shas and so on. And then he decided he's going to take a tamtzis almost of his pirush of the Beis Yosef on the Torah and make that into Shulchan Aruch. Derech Hagav, the Ramah that wrote the Hagos on the Mechaber on the Shulchan Aruch was originally planning to write a Shulchan Aruch also. He was planning to write Shulchan Aruch, and then when he heard about the Beis Yosef having written a Shulchan Aruch, he said, I'm not going to go duplicate what he said, what he did. Instead, I will just bring in my comments inside the Shulchan Aruch and show the minhagim that are different, that Ashkenazim do different than Sfardim or any other type of relevant minhagim or halachas that he felt had to be added. But anyway, so the point is that l'chura in a Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't need that. Shulchan Aruch doesn't need the details, doesn't need the reasons. Kisha'odam yedei rakas halachas hapsukis l'loi tameim, harei u'mekaimam ba'ofen shekabal soil b'vad, u'metzayis l'shulchan aruch, u'mekayim es ha-mitzvah b'shleimusa, u'lefichach yesh lo mitzvah. And what's a mitzvah? So we know according to Chassidus that a mitzvah who poyel tzafsa v'chibur, he makes a joining with the Eibishter. It's a gewaltige thing. If I follow Shulchan Aruch and I do B'Kabbalah Zohar, Shulchan Aruch says, I'm connected to the Eibishter. What could be greater? Achadvarim eina meirim etzloi, if he doesn't understand the why. If he's only doing it like a child does it. Do it because Tati said so. Even with the Frierdiker Rebbe, there's a famous story with saying over there, the brachas in the morning, that the Rebbe Rashab told the Frierdiker Rebbe to say the brachas in the morning, or until Sidaim, I don't remember what it was. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I said it already, but he said, you have to say it anyway, because that's my mitzvah, that's chinuch, you have to say it because I told you to. So there's a certain age where it's not meir by us. It's just we do it b'Kabbalah soil. But then it has to shine by us. Even the Mechaber of Shulchan Aruch said that the reason why he wrote it this way in the Shulchan Aruch format is because he's relying that you're going to know what I wrote in the Beis Yosef. Now you want to have a tamtzis of it. Now you want to have a kitzur of it. Here is like the kitzur sefer, the practical sefer. The Rebbe even brings down in the footnote a whole discussion. Are you even allowed to paskin a halacha if you don't know the reason behind the halacha? Because the problem with it is that to paskin a halacha, a lot of times you need to be medama milsa la milsa. You need to compare one thing to another thing. And if you don't know the reasons behind it, it's Admur Hazak in Aidei Chibra Shulchan Aruch Ba'ifim Sha'alachas B'tameim Heir Gam Es Ha'inyan Shel Kabbalas Oil. It's not he wrote a pirush of Nigla, which is Svaras. He took the Kabbalas oil and he made it shine. He took the Kabbalas oil and brought the Svaras in it. He took the Shulchan Aruch and brought the Svaras into it. Gam Shulchan Aruch Halach L'maisa Tzarech Lichlol as time ha'alachas. Kidei shekiyum ha'mitzvah yeh ba'ofen more ba'avona v'asagim. This is an interesting long ha'ara 22, where the Rebbe says an interesting thing. The Rebbe says that the Rebbe Rashab in Samach Vav speaks about that an Eved Pashut, as opposed to a different level of Eved, there's a level called Eved Neman. An Eved Pashut is a type of Eved that does things, and his enjoyment in it is because this is what makes the other happy. So he enjoys it, but his enjoyment is the bittul of the Eved. It's like I remember hearing about, I think Reuven Dunyan once went over to the Rebbe. The Rebbe used to wear cuffs on his pants. They were like, cuffs is when the pants are like bent up like this. When they're bent up.
Oh, yeah.
So part of the cuff or the whole cuff was like bent, open instead of being closed. So he once like crawled over to the Rebbe and like fixed it or whatever. The Rebbe smiled at him. What was the point? He saw himself, if you ever heard him or heard what he said, he saw himself as an Eved Pashut, and his tainug was the tainug of the Adon. This was his gishmak. This was his enjoyment. So the Rebbe says the whole idea of an Eved is the avoid of Kabbalah soil. Why does the Rebbe Rashab and Samach Vav have to bring in this idea that it's an idea of a tainug, that he has a tainug of the David? It's Kabbalah soil. We know Chassidim or Sabrein, a Kabbalah soil Zayid is a Kabbalah soilnik. It's all about bittul. Who cares about your feelings and your geschmack and your enjoyment? So the Rebbe says that based according to what we said now, if my avodah is only about bittul and only about Kabbalah soil, so then I'm missing the oir. There's necessary to be oir in my avodah as well. That's why the Alter Rebbe was megalech chassidus Chabad. It should be coming down to my seichel. So I have the oir that's meir in it. And then I have a tainug in the avodah, then I have a chayis in the avodah, then I do it with a gishmak, and then it's the ultimate avodah of an eved, when he does it with a total gishmak.